Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good afternoon to one and all. So after your virtual science fair, we are meeting right now. You all are free, and I don't. The only work now you left over is to prepare for your final exams. And I hope the tips for preparation today has really worked well with you all. I want you all to go through my videos, the previous chapters also. If you have not understood anything, go back. That is the purpose of recording and sending the videos. So understand the concepts very well, and in the classroom you're going to only work on the worksheets given. If you're not able to solve those worksheets, then we are there to help you. So those worksheets that have been given by SCRT, please take a print of it and start working on it and start preparing for your exams. All the very best. So now we were work in the chapter linking and coordination. Then we are going to have a very interesting chapter on hereditary. So let us see an activity which I want you to do at home also, or you can do it in the home also. If you can get the samples from home, then you can take up a droplet of iodine from our lab. Please ask Durga ma'am to help you out and drop it and just test it and find out whether your saliva has a capacity to digest carbohydrates or not. So let us go and see how this activity helps. As I told you, your digestion starts right from your mouth. So how important it is to maintain the hygiene of your teeth. There are a variety of things that are, working out in your, that it starts, your digestion starts from your teeth. So proper hygiene of your teeth, and then this, what does saliva do? How is the saliva in your mouth is helping you out? Let us see this with the help of the activity here. Okay, so let's do an activity. What are we actually doing in this activity to know the function of saliva? Let us see the action of saliva on, action of saliva in a flour. Flour is atta. हम लोग आटा क्यों ले रहे हैं आटे में का because if you remember when we did a starch test on the leaves, so to know whether starch is present or not, we have used iodine solution. If starch is there in a leaf, it turns either blue or black. Okay, so similarly flour also contains, what does atta flour contains? Your chapatis, rice and all is very rich in carbohydrates and starch, nothing but starch only. It's a form of starch. So when we are doing this test, we are going to see that in the flour, the starch that is present, how is saliva helping in digestion of this carbohydrate, right? So what are we doing is we are taking a test tube and we are filling it with water, and then a pinch of atta or the flour is taken, and then it's mixed very well. And then what are we doing? We are taking a few drops of this in a watch glass and test for the presence of starch by putting a drop of dilute tincture iodine. So this test tube, which contains water and atta or a flour, is mixed well so that it becomes a solution. And from this solution, we are taking a drop of this solution into this petri dish, and then we are adding an iodine to it to find out whether starch is present in this solution or not. So this blue-black color confirms that the starch is present in this solution. So what are we doing is now again we are dissolving a pinch of flour in half-filled water in a test tube. And this we are going to divide into two equal halves into two different test tubes one another. So this entire solution, the same solution which is of this atta flour, is divided into two equal portions, and in one of the test tube we are adding a teaspoon of saliva. And in the other test tube, we are not adding anything. Okay. And now we are going to add a tincture of iodine in the test tube where we have added saliva. Okay, so observe the changes in the solutions. Why does the change occur? Yes, the change occur because saliva changes the carbohydrates. Okay, so saliva has changed the carbohydrates. And do you think the same process go in the mouth when food is taken? Does it happen when you are eating food also? Yes, it does happen. Okay, so now we can test the pH of our mouth at a regular intervals after every hours. So now this activity has shown us that where you have added a pinch, saliva, only that test tube has turned to be black and blue. So which shows that the carbohydrates that we have eaten has got converted into starch. That is the reason it turned to blue and black. Now, if we are testing the pH of the mouth at the intervals of 1 hour, what will happen? So this you can see, you take a pH paper. Recently, Rimsha has done a very good experiment. Our class 4th, Rimsha, please see her science fair project, which she has already done, and the board must be still there in the school. She tried to find out because she was feeling stomach pain, and so she thought, and when her teacher said that it's because of acidity, she wanted to know how is acid present in the stomach. And that's how she has tested all the items that are present in her house, all the edibles, whether they're acidic, basic, or neutral. So similarly, this is very simple test which a 4th class child can do. It's so even you can do it. You know a pH scale already, you have learned it in your lower classes. 7 is neutral, water is mostly 7, and anything below 7 is acidic, and above 7 is basic. Okay, so now we are going to test the pH of our mouth at the intervals of 1 hour. After every 1 hour, let us test the pH of our mouth. So, and let us see what are our observations. So, you can ask what color of the pH paper you see, and then you can find out what it is. So what you have to do is you can do this in your school by taking a small piece of pH paper and touch it with the color chart and note the pH first. See to it that you are able to take some readings after having your food at lunch break. Compare your readings with that of your friend. So what are your readings and what are your friends' readings? Please compare both. Then what is happening is, see that you are able to take some readings and take at least 4 readings. You have to prepare your own table to record your observations. So make a table, and after every hour when you are doing this at regular intervals, see if you have done it at 2 p.m., then do it at 3 p.m., then 4 p.m. So that is what, whenever you are doing a science fair, what are your constant? Here, time is your constant variable. So make sure that after every 1 hour, you are going to test it. So that has to be very specific. Supposing first time you have done it at 2, second time 3, fourth time 3:45, then your results are not going to be accurate. We cannot trust on your results. So make sure that you maintain a proper 1 hour interval. And then find out whether it's acidic or basic. Did you observe any change in the pH after reading? And what may have caused the change? Let us see what is that has changed your pH paper. Yes, when you eat the food, saliva is secreted. So we observe a change in pH paper after eating, because as soon as you eat, the saliva is being secreted. So in what kind of pH do you think saliva amylase acts well? Okay, so let us see on which. Salivary amylase acts well in alkaline that face pH. When your mouth is alkaline, then the saliva functions very well. So, you know, this is the process of osmosis is also, there's so many other things that are linked together that works to in this medium. So based on the above test, we know that the saliva secreted cause the medium to change to alkaline as it's aids in action of enzymes, salivary and amylase. So based on this above test, we know that the saliva secreted cause the medium to change to alkaline as it aids in action of enzyme from the salivary gland and amylase. You see how it is being secreted from salivary gland, the saliva is coming. Now the travel of food through esophagus. Then how is your food that is mixed with amylase is transferring through the esophagus into your stomach? So now you can see that there is a schematic representation that shows its functions. From esophagus, the wall secretes mucus slimy substance. So what happens? The walls of the esophagus, when the food is passing through your esophagus, the walls of the esophagus contains some secretes a mucus, a slippery mucus that allows the food to pass through your esophagus. And then it passes through the stomach by a movement called peristaltic movement of your stomach, waves like movements of the walls. And the long tube upper end connects to the pharynx. And then there is a muscular and elastic movement that lower end connects to the stomach, and the walls carry on wave-like movement by contracting and relaxation. So these all are things are happening for your passage until unless all these actions are not taken by your stomach. For anything to happen, there is a need to have an action. Until and unless that action is not taken, you will not be able to move your bowel from your esophagus into the stomach. Now let's do an activity to say, make a model of esophagus to observe how bolus moves forward. So take a piece of waste cycle tube and insert 1 or 2 potatoes into it. Okay, and then lubricate the inner side of the tube with oil in the same way, smear oil over the potatoes. So now you're going to oil this inner. If you're taking the tube, he is giving an example of a tire tube. Mostly, you know, the movement of the tire tube is very much like your esophagus, and then he's applying oil in the inner walls of the tire as well as on the potato, and he's trying to pass that potato from the tube. So insert oil coated potato in the tube. And then what do you see? Now try to push the potato by squeezing the tube. So what you can do is, when we are chewing and then we are eating food in, so what are we doing is we are trying to squeeze the esophagus. So similarly, we are doing it physically on the tire and squeezing the tire and want to see how the potato moves inside. So now you can see how a potato in a cycle of a tube moves by peristaltic movement. So this movement is called as the peristaltic movement. So oil inside the tube acts as a lubricant to move the potatoes easily. So like our amylase. Now, what is peristaltic movements in the esophagus? The walls of the food pipe secretes a slippery substance called mucus. You'll have a slippery substance which we have applied oil in that place. The mucus oil is substituted by mucus in the potato experiment. So now the mucus lubricates and protects the esophagus wall from damage. And from the esophagus, pharynx, epiglottis, the food is moving towards the stomach. The oiled potato that moved in the tube, beside this, the saliva is the bolus, also aids in the easy movement of the food, which moves into your stomach. So that is how the food from esophagus reaches your stomach. Then once the walls of the esophagus are made of 2 kinds of smooth muscles, the inner layer consists of the circular muscles, resulting in the narrowing of the esophagus just behind the bolus. And Now you can see that. So the food is squeezed downwards. Contraction and relaxations of these muscles brings a wave-like motion, and that propels the food bolus into the stomach by the action called peristalsis. Movement is called peristaltic movement, and this action is peristalsis. So what is peristaltic movement? When you're getting the short questions, don't get confused. You have understood it very well, how a potato was moving into a tube through a peristaltic movement. Similarly, the bolus or a bolus is nothing but nivala जो आप खाते हैं. It is moving from the esophagus into your stomach in a peristalsis by an action called peristalsis. And this is involuntary, and it's under the control of autonomous nervous system. So there are some voluntary actions, as I told you, when you're moving your hand, waving somebody, or saying, moving it when you wish. So they are voluntary. But your autonomous nervous system, it takes care of involuntary actions. So this peristaltic movement is not in your hand. You cannot do anything. That is all involuntary. It is under the control of autonomous nervous system. That's the reason you see some of the patients who got that through accidents or something, if their brain got damaged, they are not able to swallow food. That is the reason through the nose or from the other parts of the body, the food is transferred into their body. So now stomach is the mixer and the digestion. If you look at the mixers in your house, that has been designed based upon the work your stomach does. Your poor stomach is working like a mixer grinder. So the oral active cavity, the nerves in the cheek and tongues are stimulated. And then these carry messages in the form of nerve impulses to the brain. So until and unless these messages are transmitted from the brain to the walls of the stomach and stimulate the gastric glands to produce gastric juice. So inside the stomach, gastric juice is produced. These messages are transmitted from the brain, and the walls of the stomach secretes a juice containing hydrochloric acid. If this hydrochloric acid, if the food is, at a regular interval you are eating, so your stomach gets habituated of releasing hydrochloric acid at that same time. So, but if you are not eating at the same time, like you have seen the Pavlov's experiment, in Pavlov's, how it was the dog saliva in 9th class, you have already done that experiment. So in that experiment, you have seen at a regular interval, whenever this voice, psychologically how the dogs feel hungry and the saliva is secreted. So similarly, if you are not taking your food at the regular intervals, but your stomach is tuned to it, so it will release hydrochloric acid at the regular time, and that's where, if it is in excess, you feel acidity. Acidity is what happens, which the Rimshaw's whole project is based on that. So now the contractions of the stomach muscles squeeze and mix the food with the acids and juices of the stomach. Okay. You can see that these digestive juices into your stomach is smooth porridge-like consistency called chyme. So what happens is, this food, once it has come from your bolus, you are just taking a bolus, like supposing you are taking a chapati. So you have taken a solid chapati that is being made into a semi-smooth, semi-fluid, food in the form of it. So semi-liquid. So which is called as chyme. So how is this chyme being made? Some large protein molecules are also broken down here. We can see the large protein molecules. So these peristalsis involves the contraction of the muscles behind the food and the relaxation of the muscles in front of the food, giving rise to a thirst that pushes the food forward through the digestive canal, and the relaxation of the muscle in front of the food. So peristalsis movement in the stomach has 3 stages. So what all are those 3 stages? Perfusion, peristaltic wave, move from the funs towards the pylorus. And the most vigorous peristalsis and mixing action occurs close to the pylorus. Then what is retropulsion? The pyloric end of the stomach acts as a pump that delivers small amount of chyme into the duodenum. So then do you know what is duodenum? Duodenum is a connection between your stomach and the passage to the intestines, small intestines. So simultaneously forcing most of its contained material backwards into the stomach. It is a narrow one and it will not allow it unless it's properly, the chyme has become a semi-solid. So if you look at the percentage of emptying of stomach and emptying of your intestines, 50%, 2.5 to 3 hours, your stomach gets empty, and your intestines around 2.5 hours. And total 100% happens in 4 to 5 hours, and 30 to 40 hours transit through colon. So, stomach, though your food is digested in 3 to 4 hours, but to reach it out of your colon, it takes such a long time. That is the reason early morning only you pass it out through your colon. Most of us do it at that time, because after digestion, that much of the time the food takes, unwanted food has to be excreted out. So our stomach is not like a bag with specific volume. It's like a pouch which is elastic in nature. The more we fill, the more it keeps enlarging. So it's the size of the stomach increases based upon the food that we are taking. So digestive juices are produced depending on the food material. So what type of the food material we take, the stomach would produce same amount of digestive juices. Irrespective of the food quality, the walls of the stomach would be destroyed. So that is what the giving is so important. Don't eat away all the food into your stomach, which is not good for you. There are so many hungry people. Distribute it equally to all, so that you don't face problems in future. So the HCl secreted by the walls of the stomach is strong enough to digest the hard bones as well. Certain times if you're eating bones also. So the stomach protected from the secretions of its own acids. How is stomach? Because you see that when you put acid somewhere, what happens to it? The things burn. Then what is happening to your stomach, which itself is secreting acid, but it is not getting, the tissues of the stomach are not burnt because it is being protected by it is protected by mucus. So now what you can do is do this activity. Take 2 green leaves and grease one leaf with petroleum jelly, leaving the other free. And for the other leaf, you don't do anything. And then what are you doing is add 1 or 2 drops of some weak acid on both the leaves. So from your laboratory, you can take hydrochloric acid is a weak acid, whereas sulfuric acid is a very strong acid. So take hydrochloric acid from the laboratory, and the leaf on which you have applied petroleum jelly and the other leaf where you have not applied petroleum jelly, on both of them, you just add a few drops of acid on both the leaves, and then observe what happens. So what does your observation shows? After an hour, when you see the leaf without petroleum jelly is damaged by the action of acid, whereas the leaf with petroleum jelly is protected and it's not, it is not damaged. So this shows that our stomach also has got something like petroleum jelly inside that is protecting, that's not burning or damaging the walls of the stomach. So let us see what is this petroleum jelly-like material. In the same way, the lining of the mucus that protects the wall of the stomach by the action of the acid. So as I told you, these walls of the stomach is protected by a substance called mucus, and mucus is nothing, it's very much like your petroleum jelly, greasy substance around, which is protecting the action of the acid. So acid is not able to damage because of mucus to your stomach walls. So the hydrochloric acid is secreted into his stomach, but it is at the same time your stomach is protected because of this mucus. Now, food is a soap-like mixture when it leaves the stomach and enters the small intestines, because you know how it becomes is, if you see the soapy fluid, it is very, I mean, smooth, and it flows from the duodenum into your small intestines. The food enters the intestine. The acidic nature of the chyme initiates the production of the hormones, like it start producing hormones that start secreting, and cholecystokinin stimulates pancreas, livers, and the walls of small intestines to secrete pancreatic juice, bile juice, and succus entericus. So all these juices are secreted into your small intestines. And pancreatic juice, you know, there are so many pancreatic enzymes that helps in the digestion of glucose, proteins, polypeptides, and bile juices, especially for the digestion of the fats. And all these are secreted in your small intestines. And the absorption of the nutrients by the villi in the small intestine is very selective process. This is very important, you know. These villi, these are big projections. When the food enters, this plays a very important role. So these villi select only the food that is wanted to give you energy, which is supplied into the blood, and all the unwanted food is being transferred to the large intestines, from where it is excreted out through the colon. So the walls of the intestine allows only tiny nutrients particles to pass through it. Okay, so now so you have understood how the coordination of the digestion takes place in the small intestines. After the completion of digestion in small intestine, it enters into the blood through villi. So villi helps in the absorption of this wanted food material, and it absorbs and transfers it into the blood. In blood, the digested food gets oxidized after the energy is released. Or you know, oxidized, we see that arteries carry oxygenated blood, and veins carry deoxygenated blood. So oxygenated blood is very energetic. So this absorbed food from the intestine gets oxygenated, and it releases energy or for the work you do. And releasing of energy from the food occurs only when it enters into the blood. You feel energetic only when it enters into your blood. So there is a great coordination between your digestive system. So hope you understood how your digestive system, nervous system, and the circulatory system are in coordination to when they are working. So the neural apparatus of a digestive tract comprises of such a vast and complicated neurons that has been nicknamed by the scientists as second brain. And at least 70% of the immune system is aimed at the gut to expel and kill the foreign invaders. You know, this is what is your immunity system. When we are talking about, you have to have your immunity at the time of coronavirus to fight inside. So this is what is, it does not allow the foreign invaders to enter in. Okay. Oh my God. So now what are we going to see is, now the little brain in our inner yards in connection with the big one is our skull. Partly it determines our mental state and plays key role in certain diseases throughout the body. So this is how our immune system helps us to fight and does not allow the foreign materials that are harmful for our body to invade. All these important points you can note it down. Although its influence is far reaching, the second brain is not the seat of any conscious thoughts or decision making, technically known as the energetic nervous system. We just call it an energetic nervous system, the second brain. And it consists of a sheets of nerves embedded in the walls of the long tubes of our gut or alimentary canal. We call it, you know, that is what it is called as a second brain, of our body, though it is not helping us in decision making or any function, but it is allowing there are the sheets of nerves that are embedded in the walls of the long tubes, and it measures about 9 meters end to end, and from esophagus to anus they are around 9 meters. And the second brain contains about 100 million neurons, more than in either the spinal cord or the peripheral nervous system. That is the reason said that your digestive system is very more important than your other organs of your body, your heart and all. The first thing, if your digestive system is perfect, then all the other systems work perfectly well. So eat your food on time and eat proper and good food. More than in, this multitude of neurons in the energetic nervous system enables us to feel the inner wound of our gut and its content. So eating healthy, and that is what comes halal and haram we talk about, it's all for our benefits. So this multitude of neurons in the energetic nervous system enables us to stimulate in coordinating and breaking down of food. Now, absorbing nutrients and expelling of waste required chemical processing, mechanical mixing, and rhythmic muscle contraction that moves everything down the line. So this is how this peristaltic movement and everything, and these are the nerves that are sending the messages to the brain. So you can see the coordination between your digestive system, your second brain is functioning, and there are so many independently of your brain, functions often independently of your brain. The brain has to do nothing, so it is doing here. So, but without its coordination, it is not possible. So digestive, circulatory, and nervous system are in coordination when the digestion takes place. And how are this waste are expelled out of your body? The expulsion of waste via blood through the kidneys, skin, etc. are mainly the salts, water, and urea. So now you see when the excretion is taking place. Till the digestion, we have seen that the nervous system and the circulatory system were also a part involved into it, how they were linked and coordinated. And then when this waste material has to be expelled out of your body, now the excretory system comes into picture. And you can see how skin and kidneys helps in maintaining the salts, water, and urea in our body. And the undigested food material is excreted and thrown out. Imagine you make a roll of wrapping a handful of leftover tea leaves in a tissue paper. Later you press the roll gently and open it. So what do you see? The tissue paper had absorbed the water from the leaves, from the tea leaves. And then similarly, the unwanted waste material reached the large intestine. So what is the small intestine doing? As you have seen in that experiment, in a tissue, if you put some leaves, tea leaves, and when you are closing the tissue, you see that the entire color of the tea is absorbed by the tissue, and then the leaves that are left out, it has no nutritive value. It has to be excreted out of the body. So the peristaltic waves moves the stool into and these peristaltic movements are very important, that allows the food to pass into the large intestine, and the left side of the colon acts like a storage place, and the water gets reabsorbed, and the remaining waste, usually hard mass, gets stored in the last part of the large intestine. And this last part of the large, this smelly yellowish fecal mass, usually called as stool, is later expelled out of the body through the anus. So this unwanted food is expelling out through the anus in the form of feces. These are two muscular layers that helps in the exit of the bowels. One that is under the involuntary control, and other is the voluntary control. Certain times, voluntarily also you try to, there are sometimes if you have not enough fiber in your food, you have to voluntarily put pressure and the sounds to release it. So you are doing it voluntarily, and your brain has got its own involuntary function. These muscular structures helps in opening and closing of the aperture in the canal, and they are called as the anal sphincters. And these anal sphincters, its movement is also very important at the time of excretion. If energy has to be obtained from the food, it has to be oxidized. So energy, you will not get energy from the food until unless it's oxidized by your circulatory system. And then comes the picture, you know, how are you getting oxygen in? Without your respiratory system, your lungs, your nose, your nostrils, the air cannot enter from your nostrils inside, and the lungs cannot purify and takes oxygen, and you exhale out carbon dioxide. So see how your linking system works. When you absorb food, you are eating food and it's absorbed into your blood. You get energy only when your blood gets oxidized. And for oxidation, you need respiratory system into, now a respiratory system comes into the picture. So during inhalation, oxygen moves across the walls of the alveoli, then enters into the blood. Alveoli, you know, are the basic unit structures of your lungs. Now the red blood cells and gets distributed through the cells of your body. So how they are getting all these. At the same time, carbon dioxide from our blood moves into the alveoli of the lungs, and they are breathed out through during exhalation. As we are excreting out unwanted food, so are the unwanted gases are also excreted out of our body in the form of carbon dioxide. During respiration, we breathe continuously by inhaling and exhaling air. We inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. This is an involuntary process controlled by the medulla oblongata of our autonomous nervous system. Autonomous nervous system are controlled by a medulla oblongata, that is also called as a small brain of our. The brain has got three parts, and the medulla oblongata is your small brain, and it's also called as the autonomous nervous system. So during respiration, the movement of the intercostal muscles or the diaphragm moves the rib cage, inflating and deflating the lungs. So this happens. That's the reason, you know, when you feel breathless if your stomach, if you eat too much. Air containing more of oxygen enters the bloodstream through the lungs because of the diaphragm, how the diaphragm functions. The process of digestion is complex process that involves many organs and the organ systems. Okay. So though digestion occurs in the food canal, but you can see how all the other systems are linked with it. Coordination of the respiration, blood circulation is necessary, otherwise oxidation of the food and transport of the substances is the form, and the vital and releasing of energy process. This all cannot take place until and unless they are not linked. This may lead to the shutdown of the system interdependent on each other. So important it is. So this is what is the linking system. We ends up here with this, and see you all. Please go through it. We have completed with your linking system. Inshallah, we'll start on Friday. Friday, you will have a very interesting chapter. I want you to give me the name of the chapter on the WhatsApp, which next chapter you wanted. The very interesting chapter which I am planning to take, let us see if it matches, and we'll go with that chapter. Majority of you, whichever the chapter you want, will go for that. So till then, take care, have a nice day, enjoy this coordination and linking lesson. Allah Hafiz.